Jimmy Haslam just watched something unfold that has him straight up heated, and people inside the Browns building say the billionaire owner has reached his breaking point. He's not shrugging this one off, and he's definitely not laughing anything away. After Jerry Jeudy got caught on national TV snapping at Shedeur Sanders on the sideline during that brutal loss to the 49ers, clapping wild in the rookie's face, towering over him like he was trying to boss him around and repeating, "That's wrong, that's wrong." The entire organization felt the shockwave. Insiders say Haslam is now firing off some serious questions. Why is a $52 million receiver barking at a rookie quarterback instead of going out there and making plays? Why is a veteran stirring up drama instead of helping steady the ship? And what went down behind those locker room doors after the game is something people in Cleveland are whispering about with wide eyes. Here's what nobody in mainstream sports coverage is bringing up. Jimmy Haslam didn't spend months defending the decision to draft Shedeur Sanders in the 5th round, taking heat from every direction, listening to talking heads say the kid wasn't wanted, hearing claims from people like Eric Manini that he forced general manager Andrew Berry to select him, just to watch Jerry Jeudy step in and try to crush this young quarterback's confidence in front of 70,000 fans at Huntington Bank Field. That is absolutely not what Haslam signed off on when he approved Jeudy's massive contract extension, and people close to the situation say he is beyond frustrated with what went down. And trust me, this whole thing goes way beyond one heated moment caught on camera. This story cuts deep, and the layers go way further than two teammates blowing off steam. The Browns were trailing the 49ers in the 4th quarter of what was only Shedeur Sanders' 2nd career start in the NFL. The rookie is on the bench, sitting with the offensive lineman, locked in on his Microsoft Surface tablet, doing exactly what a real quarterback is supposed to do, studying the defense, trying to level up his reads, trying to find a way to push back against one of the strongest defenses in the league. Then here comes Jerry Jeudy, rolling up with attitude written all over him. He walks over, claps aggressively right in Shedeur's face, leans down over him while he's seated, and gets loud in a way that felt straight up confrontational. The posture alone made the whole thing look like something way more serious than just frustration between teammates. CBS cameras caught every second of the exchange, and the clip exploded online within minutes. You can see Jeudy standing over Shedeur, firing off at him with raw frustration. When Shedeur tries to defend himself, because that's what real competitors do, because any athlete with pride would stand up for themselves, Jeudy doesn't ease up. He keeps repeating, "That's wrong, that's wrong," like he's the one making the calls, like he's the offensive coordinator, like he has the authority to talk down to the guy who literally throws him the football. The disrespect was so clear, so out of pocket, that veteran offensive lineman Ethan Pusick had to physically step in and separate the two. Even the broadcasters sounded stunned watching it unfold, because moments like this don't just disappear. They leave marks on a locker room, especially when it involves a rookie trying to find his footing under massive pressure. Think about this for a second. A massive offensive lineman had to step in and calm things down because a $52 million receiver couldn't keep his cool or carry himself like a pro. That alone had people around the league shaking their heads. And once you look at the numbers, the whole situation gets even messier and shows just how off Jerry Jeudy was with that sideline outburst. In Shedeur Sanders' 2 career starts, Jeudy has only managed 4 catches on 7 targets. That's a 57% catch rate, nothing special for someone who's supposed to be a top receiver. But it gets even more rough. He's already dropped 2 passes in just 2 games with Shedeur throwing the ball, 2 drops in 2 weeks. And no one in Cleveland forgot that wild fumble he had last week where he caught the ball and immediately got stripped from behind because he wasn't aware of the defender chasing him. That mistake gave away prime field position and put the Browns in a hole they didn't need. But here's the part that really gets Browns fans heated. Through 10 games with Deshaun Watson and Joe Flacco running the offense, Jeudy only pulled in 28 catches, and 8 of those were drops. That averages out to just 2.8 catches per game from the guy who's supposed to be the main weapon, the third down lifeline, the red zone threat, the one who earns every dollar of that huge contract. That type of production is not what you expect from someone paid like a franchise playmaker. But now here's the million-dollar question that has Jimmy Haslam and everybody else confused. Why haven't we ever seen Jerry Jeudy bark at Deshaun Watson on the sideline like this? Why didn't he clap in Joe Flacco's face when those guys threw picks or had had rough drives? Why didn't he step up and challenge them publicly when they were struggling, or when the offense couldn't get anything going? So what makes Shedeur Sanders the target? Why is Jeudy coming after the rookie? Why is he going after the 5th round pick, the same young quarterback Jimmy Haslam has defended over and over again? The answer says a lot about Jerry Jeudy's mindset, and the picture it paints is not flattering. Let's break this down, because Browns fans need to know the full context. This behavior isn't brand new for Jeudy. He has a long reputation for reacting poorly to criticism, letting pride get in the way, and lashing out instead of addressing his own mistakes. When things get tough, he doesn't always take accountability. He pushes the blame outward. Remember when Hall of Fame wide receiver Steve Smith called him out a few years ago? That moment tells you everything you need to know about how Jeudy handles pressure. Smith was on his podcast, Cut to It, talking about wide receivers who hadn't delivered at the level people expected based on their talent and draft position. The word he used to describe Jeudy was jag, meaning just a guy, not a star, not a top-tier talent, just an average receiver taken in the 1st round who wasn't producing like a 1st rounder. Smith said Jeudy wasn't making big plays, wasn't stepping into the true number 1 role, and wasn't living up to what Denver expected when they drafted him. And when Steve Smith eventually saw Jeudy in person at an NFL event, he did what a real professional does. He approached him and tried to apologize face to face. He tried to make peace with respect, like someone who stands on integrity. When Steve Smith walked up to Jerry Jeudy, he came with real humility. He told him something like, "Hey, I know I said some things in the past on my podcast that I probably shouldn't have said, and I want to apologize for that. I was harsh, and maybe I crossed a line." That's pure professionalism right there. That's a Hall of Famer, someone the entire league respects, showing maturity and stepping toward peace with honesty and class. And Jerry Jeudy's reaction, it was the complete opposite of that energy. Instead of accepting the apology or even just nodding and walking away, he cursed at Steve Smith and hit him with, "I don't mess with you," repeating it with profanity. He straight up disrespected a Hall of Fame receiver who was trying to squash old tension and show him respect. And Steve Smith, being the competitor he's always been, did not let that moment slide. Smith went on his podcast and fired back with precision. He said, "I'm sorry that I said you were a jag, just a guy, an average wide receiver that they used a 1st round pick on that isn't doing anything. I hope today you actually show up in a way that you haven't showed up in the last couple years since they drafted you." That was a direct hit, and it didn't stop there. Smith then dropped one of the most brutal evaluations you'll ever hear from someone with his resume. He said that when NFL teams call him asking whether they should trade for Jerry Jeudy or invest in him, he tells them flat out, no, he says, "Don't trade for Jerry Jeudy because he's mentally unable to handle constructive criticism from people who watch football and analyze the game professionally." That's a heavy statement coming from a Hall of Famer who built his entire reputation on toughness, accountability, and consistency. Smith labeled him a tier 3 receiver, not elite like Tyreek Hill or Justin Jefferson, not even in the solid 2nd tier with dependable number 2s across the league. Tier 3 meaning replaceable, inconsistent, and nowhere near meeting the expectations of a former 1st round pick. And the wild part, time has proven Smith right, because years later, Jerry Jeudy is still reacting the same way when things get tough. He still struggles with adversity, and when mistakes happen, he doesn't look inward. He points fingers at everyone around him. Now let's break down what actually went down in that 49 ERs game, because the details shine a big spotlight on where the real issue was. First quarter, Shedeur Sanders drops a deep shot downfield toward Jeudy. The play had real potential to flip momentum. The ball had good air under it. Jeudy had a step on his defender, and if the connection hit, it could have been a huge gain, or maybe even 6 points. The pass drifted just a bit long, falling inches beyond Jeudy's reach. But here's where people who've studied the film are calling things out. Multiple analysts are saying that if Jeudy had stayed at full speed, if he had kept his stride instead of slowing down, he would have met that ball in stride. Instead, he decelerated mid-route, and that slight drop in speed meant the pass sailed over him. And right after that play, cameras caught Jeudy on the sideline shaking his head, throwing his hands up, and making it extremely clear he thought the whole thing was Shedeur's fault. The frustration was obvious in every gesture, but here's what Jerry Jeudy either doesn't get or refuses to acknowledge. The wind in that game was shifting the ball in mid-air. That matters, especially on deep throws. Quarterbacks have to adjust to those conditions, and receivers have to track the ball with even more precision. Instead of adapting to the environment or pushing through the route with full commitment, Jeudy slowed down and turned around looking for someone else to blame. Shedeur himself admitted in his post-game press conference that the wind was absolutely affecting some some of his throws. He kept it real and said, exact quote, "All quarterbacks know you gotta cut through the wind whenever you throw. I was just calculated off. It was just a miss. It was just a missed shot. When I missed that shot, I got to stay on myself to keep shooting." That right there is pure accountability from a rookie who just played his second NFL game. He didn't dodge the question. He didn't blame the weather for everything. He didn't point at his receiver for slowing down. He stood there and said, "I missed," and put it on himself to tighten up and grow. That's what leaders do. That's the mentality of someone who understands the responsibility of playing quarterback at the highest level. And that attitude, owning mistakes, learning fast, that's exactly what Jimmy Haslam wants from the player he's backing. But here's the problem. Where is Jerry Jeudy's accountability? Where's his moment of saying, yeah, maybe I should have run that route at full speed? Where's his acknowledgement that he could have adjusted mid-stride to a ball that shifted in the air? Where's the veteran presence you expect from someone earning $52 million to make tough catches in big moments? Instead of owning any part of the miscommunication, Jeudy spent the whole game frustrated, quiet on the sideline, and then eventually blew up at the worst possible moment. His final stat line, 3 catches for 26 yards. That's literally all he put on the board in a game where the Browns desperately needed every playmaker to show up against one of the nastiest defenses in the league. And then, when the fourth quarter started, when the Browns were down and starving for offense, when they needed maturity and unity, Jeudy chose that exact moment to step to Shedeur and turn the sideline into a spectacle. The play that set him off was a 3-and-out series that gained just 1 yard. It ended with Shedeur missing Jeudy on a mid-range route across the middle. That's the kind of thing quarterbacks and receivers talk through quietly in private so they can get back on the same page. But Jeudy didn't wait for the coaches. He didn't pull Shedeur aside calmly to figure out the read. Instead, he walked over loud, made it public, and turned it into a moment the cameras couldn't ignore. He didn't just confront him, he embarrassed him on national television in front of millions of people. That's not leadership, that's not veteran guidance, that's frustration boiling over in the worst way possible. And this is exactly where Jimmy Haslam comes into the story in a major way. Sources say the Browns owner is furious, not annoyed, not disappointed, furious. And here's why. Jimmy Haslam has been one of the most outspoken supporters of Shedeur Sanders since draft day. Even when the outside world questioned the pick, even when critics claimed the Browns only drafted him because Haslam forced it on the front office, he stood firm and backed his guy. When Eric Manini and others in the media said Haslam pushed the Shedeur pick onto Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski, that the GM and coach weren't on board, Haslam jumped in immediately to shut that down. He defended his football operation and his quarterback in the same breath. He said, and this is key. We have a good process here at the end of the day. That's Andrew Berry's call. Andrew made the call to pick Shedeur. That statement wasn't just about the GM. It was reinforcing that the entire organization believed in Shedeur. It was Haslam making it clear this wasn't some owner override or pressure play. This was a unified decision to bring in a quarterback they trusted and wanted to build around. So watching Jerry Jeudy disrespect that quarterback publicly, watching him go after a rookie who's owning his mistakes and fighting to improve, that's exactly the kind of thing that makes an owner step in and start asking serious questions. Back in October, when Diana Rossini from The Athletic asked Jimmy Haslam about all the noise surrounding Shedeur Sanders and why he wasn't starting earlier in the season, Haslam said something that revealed exactly how he views his young quarterback. He told her, listen, he's a serious football player, and inside the building there's no noise. He comes to work every single day just like everybody else, and he's trying to get better. As a football player, that's all that matters to us. That statement said everything. That's an owner going to bat for his quarterback. That's an owner saying, I'm not listening to the outside world. I'm watching what's happening inside my building. He didn't care about the memes, the tweets, the pundits, or the critics. He cared about Shedeur's attitude, his effort, and his development. That's the kind of backing not every quarterback gets, especially a rookie who was drafted into one of the toughest markets in the NFL. So imagine Jimmy Haslam sitting in his box watching Jerry Jeudy, a player Cleveland is paying $52.5 million over 3 years with $41 million guaranteed, stand over Shedeur and publicly disrespect him on the sideline. Imagine watching that happen to the same quarterback Haslam has defended multiple times. The same quarterback the franchise invested a draft pick in. The same quarterback they hope can finally stabilize a position that has haunted the Browns for years. Sources close to the situation say that once the game ended, Haslam had heated conversations with both Andrew Barry and Kevin Stefanski. He wanted answers, real ones. Why did Jerry Jeudy feel comfortable stepping to Shedeur like that in front of the whole world? What did the coaches plan to do about it? What accountability was coming? And most importantly, Haslam made it clear that this type of behavior, this toxic me-first attitude, has no place in the culture Cleveland is trying to build. Not when they're trying to establish a winning identity, not when they're trying to develop a young quarterback, not when unity matters more than ever. Here's the truth Browns fans need to understand. Jerry Jeudy is supposed to be the leader of that receiver room. He's the veteran. He's played in playoff atmospheres. He's been touted as a Pro Bowl level talent, and he's making more money than anyone else in that entire position group by a massive margin. A player like that is supposed to lift Shedeur up, help him develop, give him confidence in tough moments, set the tone in the locker room. That's what a real veteran presence does for a young quarterback trying to learn the league. But instead of being that steady hand, Jeudy is tearing him down. He's creating tension instead of guidance. He's making moments about himself instead of thinking about the team. And while he's doing all that, his production this season has fallen off a cliff. The numbers don't lie, they're rough. Jeudy has 35 catches for 421 yards and 1 touchdown through 11 games. For a receiver with his physical talent, his draft pedigree, and his salary, those numbers are nowhere near what's expected. Those aren't WR1 numbers. Those aren't even strong WR2 numbers. For someone who was supposed to be a franchise-level playmaker, that stat line is unacceptable for a team trying to stay alive in the AFC playoff race. And when a veteran is underperforming like that, the last thing anyone expects or wants is for him to turn around and publicly blame the rookie quarterback instead of looking inward. Here's the stat that should have every Browns fan fired up. Jerry Jeudy leads the entire NFL with 9 dropped passes. 9. That's not just a slump, not just a bad week. That's flat out embarrassing for a receiver who came into the league with first-round hype and a reputation for elite route running. When Cleveland traded for Jeudy, they only gave up a 5th and 6th round pick. On paper, it looked like a steal. A young, talented former first-rounder for basically nothing. It looked like one of those rare moves where the Browns outsmarted the market. Then Cleveland doubled down and handed him a massive 3-year, $52.5 million extension with $41 million guaranteed. That's franchise player money. And what has he delivered in return? Drops, fumbles, sideline drama, public confrontations with his own quarterback. And now he's leading the league in the one stat no receiver ever wants to lead. That's not good business, and Jimmy Haslam knows it. Now let's talk about what Shedeur Sanders said after the game, because this is where you really see the difference between him and Jerry Jeudy. After being disrespected on live TV, after getting barked at by his own wideout in front of millions, after having every reason to clap back, Shedeur could have easily thrown Jeudy under the bus. He could have told reporters, yeah, he was completely wrong. He shouldn't have come at me like that. He needs to look at his own performance before pointing fingers. And the media would have run with it. Fans would have cheered him for it. No one would have blamed him, but Shedeur didn't go there, not even close. Instead, he took the high road with the kind of poise you usually see from seasoned veterans, not rookies. When he was asked about the offense and his chemistry with the receivers, he said, when we got in certain passing situations and field position, everything like that, it wasn't the best. It was a comfort level. As players and teammates, we have to be able to gel with each other and be comfortable with each other in every situation. That takes time. This team is not going to be a microwave thing, not going to be a microwave thing. Let that sink in. That's a rookie quarterback who understands how the NFL actually works. He knows chemistry isn't instant, especially when he spent the first half of the season backing up Joe Flacco and Deshaun Watson, getting 0 first-team reps. He knows timing takes practice, reps, and real game snaps. He's not expecting magic just because he stepped into the lineup. He gets that growth takes time. That's maturity you don't see from everybody in this league. And then Shedeur said something even more revealing, something that Browns coaches absolutely need to pay attention to. He said, a lot of time out there. Passing wise, we're not seeing everything at the same lens. Certain guys aren't in the same spot that we've seen in practice. Read between the lines. That's a polite way of saying the receivers aren't always running their routes the right way. That's him basically saying, I'm making the read, but the guy isn't where he's supposed to be. That's him explaining the disconnect without calling anybody out directly. And of course, the first person he's referring to is Jerry Jeudy, the veteran, the player making $52 million, the guy who should absolutely know better. A veteran wideout shouldn't be the one missing landmarks or drifting off timing routes, especially when working with a young quarterback trying to establish rhythm. And what's wild, even after all that, after being confronted publicly, after being blamed for plays that weren't entirely his fault, after having legitimate reasons to snap back, Shedeur still refused to throw Jeudy or anyone else under the bus. He kept it professional. He protected the locker room. He handled everything with calm leadership that's rare for a rookie with only 2 starts under his belt. That's the difference in mentality right there. Shedeur's acting like someone who wants to build something in Cleveland. Jeudy's acting like someone who wants to point fingers instead of stepping up. And that contrast is exactly why this entire situation has the organization on alert, and why Jimmy Haslam is treating it so seriously. When a reporter tried baiting Shedeur into criticizing Kevin Stefanski's aggressive 4th down calls, clearly fishing for a headline, Shedeur shut it down, fast and firm. He said, "First, that's a rude question to ask if I think it was a great call by my coach. I like being out there playing. We're not going to be here and point fingers at no coach or do anything like that. That's extremely disrespectful." That answer was pure leadership on display. That's exactly how a franchise quarterback carries himself when everything around him is chaotic, even when teammates disrespect him, even when the offense struggles, even when the outside world is pushing for drama. He refuses to make things worse. He doesn't take cheap shots. He doesn't attack his coaches. He doesn't feed negativity. He stays professional and protects the people around him, even when they don't deserve it. That's a maturity most veterans never reach, and Jimmy Haslam sees every bit of this. He's watching Shedeur handle pressure with calm and maturity. He's watching him own mistakes, even when they weren't entirely his fault. He's watching him stand up for coaches and teammates without hesitation. Shedeur is acting like someone who wants to build something in Cleveland, someone who understands the responsibility of being a franchise quarterback. And then on the other side, Haslam sees Jerry Jeudy acting completely different. He sees a veteran melting down on the sideline. He sees Jeudy attacking the quarterback publicly instead of helping him grow. He sees Jeudy pointing fingers, making excuses, and not producing on the field while still collecting a massive paycheck. The contrast between the two couldn't be more obvious, and ownership is paying attention. Insiders familiar with internal Browns discussions say Jimmy Haslam has already made it clear to Andrew Berry that changes are coming. He wants a culture built on accountability, respect, and professionalism. Not drama, not finger pointing, not veterans acting like they're above the standard. He wants leaders who lift the team, not players who drag the locker room into chaos. Some people close to the situation even believe the Browns may look to trade Jerry Jeudy in the offseason. And if another incident happens, there's talk they might explore options before the trade deadline. Because seriously, if you're Jimmy Haslam and you're paying a receiver $52 million to drop passes, lead the league in mistakes, and publicly challenge your young quarterback, what reason do you have to keep him around? What real value is he bringing to the future of the franchise? The Browns have 5 games left this season, 5 chances to salvage something and build momentum. Kevin Stefanski has already confirmed that Shedeur Sanders will start in Week 14 against the Tennessee Titans, meaning this isn't a short audition anymore. Shedeur is getting a legitimate stretch to show what he can do as the starting quarterback. But that also means Shedeur and Jerry Jeudy will have to coexist, at least until the season ends. And that raises the question everyone is asking right now. Can Jerry Jeudy put his ego aside? Can he act like a professional and support his quarterback the way veterans are supposed to? Can he focus on his own performance instead of targeting everybody else? Can he take accountability and help the offense grow? Or is he going to keep repeating the same destructive pattern we've seen, blaming others when things don't go his way, clashing with teammates, and letting frustration overshadow his responsibilities? The next 5 games won't just determine the Browns' season. They'll reveal whether this receiving core can function with Shedeur leading the offense, and whether Jerry Jeudy sees himself as part of the solution or part of the problem. And make no mistake, Jimmy Haslam is watching every move. Because if Jerry Jeudy keeps acting like this, if there's another public blow-up, another moment where he becomes the problem instead of the solution, Jimmy Haslam is going to make a move, and it's definitely not going to be in Jeudy's favor. Haslam has shown over and over again that he's not afraid to step in when the culture of his team is on the line, and people need to remember something important. This is the same owner who defended Shedeur Sanders when almost nobody else did, the same owner who stood firm when the national media tried to drag the kid, the same owner who said he's a serious football player while analysts called Shedeur a distraction. A social media quarterback, someone who couldn't make the jump to the NFL. Haslam didn't buy into any of that noise. He's also the same owner who backed the decision to draft him, even when it looked like some people inside the organization weren't fully sold. Haslam believed in his young quarterback from day one, and he's not going to let anyone jeopardize that development, especially not a veteran who's supposed to be helping, not hurting. So if Jerry Jeudy wants a future in Cleveland, the message is crystal clear. He better fix the attitude, fix the effort, and fix the energy fast, because Shedeur Sanders is earning respect and Jeudy is losing it more every week. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want more inside stories just like this, make sure to like, share, and subscribe.